The combined galactic fleet arrived at the edge of human space, like a storm made of steel and energy. 15 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy arranged themselves in perfect battle formation. Admiral Zix Thera commanded from the massive Vorthak flagship Supremacy, a dreadnought so large it could have destroyed an entire planet. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the enemy fleet through his main view screen. His ship looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessels that faced him. The smallest enemy ship was twice the size of his own vessel, and the largest was bigger than anything humans had ever built. But Jake was not worried. He looked around, his bridge at the crew that had turned galactic refuse into something extraordinary. Engineer Lisa Campbell monitored the fusion cores they had rebuilt from broken alien junk. Chief Mechanic Danny Rodriguez watched the hull systems that had been constructed from cracked armor plating. Weapons Specialist Kate Sullivan prepared the guns she had hidden inside old alien housings. Systems Analyst Ben Clark operated the computer network he had built from obsolete processors. Tactical Analysis Ben, Jake requested. Ben's distributed computer network had been studying the enemy formation for hours. They're using standard galactic combat doctrine, Captain. Long-range engagement with energy weapons, followed by fighter screens and boarding actions. They assume we'll fight like every other ship in their databases. Their mistake, Jake replied. Kate, are your surprises ready? Kate smiled from her weapons station. 6 months of studying their garbage has taught us exactly how their shields work and where their weak points are located. I've got some very unpleasant surprises waiting for them. Admiral Zix Thera's voice came through the communication system, amplified and threatening. Human vessel, you have defied the will of the Galactic Council and refused lawful demands for inspection. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded or face complete destruction. Jake activated his own communication system, making sure his response would be heard by every ship in both fleets. Admiral Zix Thera, you gave us your scrap metal because you thought we were too primitive to build anything dangerous with it. You were wrong. If you want our ship, you're welcome to. Try and take it. The alien admiral's clicking laughter filled the communication channel. One pathetic human vessel against 15 of the galaxy's finest warships? This will be over in minutes. The battle began when Jake fired the first shot. A single railgun projectile crossed the space between fleets in seconds and punched completely through the shields and hull of a Korgan cruiser. The massive warship shuddered under the impact of weapons that hit harder than anything the aliens had ever encountered. The galactic fleet responded with a coordinated barrage that should have vaporized any normal ship. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and fusion torpedoes converged on the USS Defiance from multiple directions. The space around the human ship glowed with destructive energy that could have melted a moon. But Danny Rodriguez's hull design absorbed and deflected the attack in ways that defied galactic understanding of physics and engineering. The honeycomb framework distributed the incoming energy across thousands of structural points. The hybrid human-alien armor plating channeled the heat away from critical systems. Warning lights flashed on the bridge, but the ship kept fighting. Hull, damage minimal, Danny reported from his station. The framework is holding better than we calculated. We can take a lot more punishment than they expect. Jake watched the enemy fleet through his view screen and saw confusion spreading among the alien commanders. Their most powerful weapons had barely scratched a ship that looked like it was built from garbage. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for this kind of resistance. Kate, show them what human engineering really looks like. The USS Defiance opened fire with weapons that operated on principles the galactic powers had never seen before. Kate's railguns fired projectiles that moved at nearly light speed, while her missile systems launched volleys of smart weapons that used Ben's computer network to coordinate their attacks. The effect was devastating. Alien ships that had seemed invincible moments before began taking damage from weapons that penetrated their shields like they were made of paper. Explosions bloomed along hulls that were supposed to be impregnable. Warning signals filled enemy communication channels as critical systems failed under the assault. Admiral Zixathera's flagship tried to use its massive size and firepower to overwhelm the human ship. The Supremacy was armed with weapons that could crack continents, protected by shields that had never been penetrated. But Kate's weapons had been designed specifically to counter every type of defense the galactic powers used. Railgun projectiles punched through the dreadnought's shields and tore holes in its armor. Missiles found weak points that had been hidden for centuries behind layers of protection. The mighty Supremacy, pride of the Vorthak Empire, began venting atmosphere and losing power as human weapons dismantled its defenses piece by piece. "Impossible," came Zixathara's voice over the communication channel, no longer confident and threatening. "How can primitive weapons defeat our most advanced defenses?" Jake activated his communication system again. "You keep calling us primitive, but you never bothered to understand what that really means. We don't build things to be perfect from the start. We build them to keep working when everything goes wrong." The battle continued as the USS Defiance moved through the enemy formation like a predator among helpless prey. Ben's computer network predicted enemy movements and coordinated responses faster than any galactic artificial intelligence. Lisa's rebuilt fusion cores provided more power than the aliens thought possible. Danny's modified hull took punishment. That would have destroyed any conventional ship. But the real genius was in how all the systems worked together. The aliens had built their ships like collections of separate components that each did one job perfectly. The humans had built their ship like a living organism where every part supported every other part. Within an hour, the combined galactic fleet was in complete disarray. 3 ships had been destroyed outright. 7 more were crippled and drifting, helplessly. The remaining 5 vessels were fleeing at maximum speed rather than face total annihilation. The USS Defiance had not even suffered significant damage. As rescue ships moved in to help the defeated fleet, Admiral Zixathara transmitted a final message that was heard throughout the galaxy. "The humans have created something beyond our comprehension. We gave them our refuse because we thought they were beneath our notice. We never considered that they might see possibilities where we saw only limitations." Captain Morrison's response became the stuff of legend, repeated in military academies and diplomatic circles for generations to come. "You gave us your scraps because you thought we were inferior. But you never stopped to think that maybe the problem wasn't with the materials. Maybe the problem was with your imagination." The aftermath of the battle changed everything. Within days, the Galactic Council called an emergency session to grant humanity full membership with all the rights and privileges of founding species. The alien powers that had once mocked human primitiveness now requested technical exchanges and mutual defense treaties. The USS Defiance remained in service for decades, eventually joined by an entire fleet of human vessels that continued to surprise and impress the galactic community. But it was always remembered as the ship that proved humanity's place among the stars was not determined by what they were given, but by what they chose to do with it. And in the halls of the Galactic Council, where alien species had once laughed at human ingenuity, there now hung a simple sign that every civilization came to respect. Never underestimate human determination. News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of the USS Defiance's victory over the Korgan destroyers, every major civilization knew that something impossible had happened. The humans, those primitive newcomers who had been given garbage and told to be grateful, had just defeated 3 of the galaxy's most powerful warships. Admiral Zixathara stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council, his insect-like mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. The same chamber where the aliens had laughed at humanity just 6 months ago was now filled with worried voices and frightened whispers. "This was supposed to be a lesson in humility," Zixathara declared to the assembled representatives. "We gave them our oldest, most worthless scrap metal. They were meant to fail. and learn their place in the natural order of things. Instead, these humans have created something that threatens everything we understand about galactic power. The other council members were equally disturbed by what had happened. Node Prime, the chrome-plated representative of the Nexus Collective, projected holographic displays showing the battle data that had been collected from various sources. Their vessel's capabilities exceed any ship in our current databases, Node Prime announced in its mechanical voice. Power output readings suggest a battlecruiser-class reactor, yet the ship masses like a frigate. Weapon systems show characteristics we have never encountered. Hull composition appears to be a hybrid of multiple incompatible technologies. A representative from the Luminari, still grateful for being rescued, tried to defend the humans. Perhaps we should consider that their methods, while unconventional, have produced remarkable results. They saved our research station when no one else could respond in time. But the other council members were not interested in gratitude. They were worried about what the human victory meant for the established order of galactic civilization. For thousands of years, the same species had held the same positions of power. The strong ruled over the weak, and everyone knew their place. Now a group of primitive newcomers had upset that balance with a single ship. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the intelligence reports that were flooding in from across the galaxy. Every major power was suddenly very interested in humanity's impossible warship. Spy satellites had appeared in nearby star systems. Diplomatic channels were buzzing with demands for technical specifications and thinly veiled threats. "They're scared," Captain Jake Morrison observed during a briefing at Earth's military headquarters. "For the first time since we joined the galactic community, we're not the ones asking for permission or begging for scraps." Admiral Hayes nodded as she studied the reports. "The Korgan are demanding revenge for their humiliation. The Vorthak want to inspect our ship to determine how we achieved such capabilities. The Nexus Collective is offering to trade advanced technology for access to our engineering methods." "And what's our response?" Jake asked. "The same response humanity has always given when bullies try to push us around," Hayes replied. "We tell them to try and take what they want, if they think they can." The situation grew more tense when Warlord Graktos, the Korgan commander who had fled from the USS Defiance, appeared before the Galactic Council to demand action. His scarred face was twisted with rage as he described his encounter with the human ship. "No vessel that small should possess such firepower," he declared. "Their weapons penetrated our shields like they were made of smoke. Their hull absorbed our strongest plasma cannons without significant damage. This ship violates every principle of galactic military balance." Admiral Zix Thera seized on the Korgan's complaints to build support for action against humanity. The Galactic Council gave the humans outdated technology as a test of their capabilities. Instead of accepting their limitations, they have somehow created a weapon of mass destruction. This cannot be allowed to continue. Other species began adding their own concerns. The Nexus Collective worried that human innovation might disrupt their carefully calculated technological progression. The Luminari, despite being grateful for their rescue, were concerned about the military implications of such powerful weapons. Even smaller species that had previously ignored humanity were now demanding answers. A coalition began forming among the major powers. Vorthak, Korgan, and several Nexus Collective nodes united in their determination to put humanity back in its place. They claimed that the USS Defiance represented a threat to galactic peace and stability. "The humans must surrender their vessel for inspection and disarmament," declared the coalition's official statement. "Any species that can create such destructive capability from discarded materials clearly poses a danger to civilized society." When news of the coalition's demands reached Earth, the response was swift and clear. Admiral Hayes herself delivered humanity's answer during a broadcast that was transmitted to every corner of the galaxy. The USS Defiance was constructed entirely from materials freely given to humanity by the Galactic Council, she stated calmly. "We used our own labor, our own ingenuity, and our own resources to build something useful from what others considered worthless. We will not surrender our sovereign vessel to foreign powers who fear what they do not understand. She paused to let her words sink in before continuing. If the galactic community wants to inspect our ship, they are welcome to try and take it, but they should remember that we built the USS Defiance from their garbage. What do they think we can build when we're properly motivated? The broadcast sent shockwaves through the alien civilizations. No species had ever spoken to the Galactic Council with such defiance. The established powers were used to being obeyed without question. Younger species were expected to show respect and gratitude for whatever scraps they were given. Back on the USS Defiance, Captain Morrison and his crew prepared for what everyone knew was coming. Intelligence reports indicated that a large fleet was being assembled. Ships from multiple species were gathering at rally points throughout the galaxy. The coalition had decided that humanity needed to be taught a lesson that would be remembered. For generations, engineer Lisa Campbell worked around the clock to optimize every system on their ship. "They're going to come at us with everything they have," she told her team. "We need to be ready for a fight that will determine humanity's future in this galaxy." Chief Mechanic Danny Rodriguez reinforced the hull modifications that had already proven their worth in battle. The framework held up well against 3 Korgan destroyers, but they're going to bring a lot more firepower next time. Weapons Specialist Kate Sullivan prepared additional surprises that she had been working on since their first engagement. "I've been analyzing the sensor data from our battle with the Korgan. I think I know how to make our weapons even more effective." Systems analyst Ben Clark expanded his computer network to handle the increased demands of large-scale combat. "They'll try to jam our communications and hack our systems, but our distributed network should be able to adapt to whatever they throw at us." As reports came in about the size of the fleet being assembled against them, Jake realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test. 15 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were preparing to teach the upstart humans a lesson about respecting their betters. But Jake also knew that his crew had already achieved something that should have been impossible. They had turned garbage into a weapon that had shocked the galaxy. If they could do that once, maybe they could do something even more remarkable when everything was on the line. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you underestimated human determination and ingenuity, and Jake suspected that the lesson would not be the one the aliens expected to teach. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the USS Defiance as his ship moved through the quiet space near the edge of human territory. This was supposed to be a simple test flight to make sure all the ship's systems worked properly. He had chosen the most peaceful route he could find, far from any major shipping lanes or military zones. The bridge was smaller than those on alien ships, but every surface showed the careful work his team had done. Alien control panels had been modified with human interfaces. The main view screen used alien display technology but ran on human software. Everything looked like it belonged, even though it had all been rebuilt from scratch. Communications Officer Amy Price sat at her station, monitoring the various signals that traveled through space. Most of them were routine shipping reports and navigation beacons, but suddenly her expression changed. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal," Amy reported. "It's coming from about 2 hours away at maximum speed." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of distress signal?" Amy worked at her controls, trying to get more information. "It's a Luminary research station. They're broadcasting on emergency frequencies. The message says they're under attack by Korgan raiders." Jake knew about both species from his briefings. The Luminary were peaceful scientists who spent their time studying space phenomena and rarely bothered anyone. The Korgan were brutal warriors who attacked weaker ships and stations to steal whatever they could find. It was exactly the kind of situation that made Jake angry. "How many Korgan ships?" he asked. Amy listened to more of the signal. "The transmission mentions 3 Korgan destroyers. They've already damaged the station's shields and are preparing to board." Jake looked. Around his bridge at the crew members who had worked so hard to build this ship. Lisa Campbell was at the engineering station, monitoring the fusion cores they had rebuilt from alien junk. Ben Clark was at the computer systems, where his network of connected alien processors was running perfectly. Kate Sullivan was at the weapons station, ready to test the guns she had hidden inside old alien housings. The smart thing to do would be to call for help from the Galactic Council fleet and wait for proper military ships to respond. But Jake knew that would take hours, and the Luminary Research Station would be destroyed long before help arrived. "Battle stations," Jake ordered. "Let's see what our ship can really do." The USS Defiance changed course and accelerated toward the distress signal. Within an hour, they could see the Luminary Research Station on their main screen. It was a delicate structure made of crystal and metal, designed for scientific work rather than combat. 3 massive Korgan destroyers surrounded it like wolves circling wounded prey. The Korgan ships were brutal-looking vessels covered in armor plating and weapon mounts. Each one was 3 times the size of the USS Defiance and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They had already torn holes in the research station's outer hull and were extending boarding tubes to send warriors inside. "Amy, open. A channel to the Korgan ships," Jake commanded. "Channel open, Captain. Korgan vessels, this is Captain Morrison of the USS Defiance. You are attacking a peaceful research station in violation of galactic law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly, and Jake could hear laughter in the alien voice. "Human ship, this is Warlord Graktos of the Korgan Empire. Your pathetic vessel is no match for 3 destroyers. Leave now if you want to live." Jake looked at his crew and saw determination on every face. These people had spent months turning garbage into something extraordinary. They deserved a chance to see what they had built. "Negative, Warlord. Release the research station and withdraw, or we will stop." "You!" More laughter came through the communication system. "1 primitive human ship against 3 Korgan destroyers? This will be entertaining. Prepare to die, human." The Korgan ships turned away from the research station and formed an attack formation. Their plasma cannons began charging, creating an ominous glow along their hulls. Jake could see why they were confident. By every measure that mattered to galactic military thinking, the USS Defiance was hopelessly outmatched. "Kate, are your weapons ready?" Jake asked. Kate Sullivan's hands moved over her controls with practiced efficiency. "All systems showing green, Captain. The railguns are charged and the missiles are loaded. They have no idea what's about to hit them." "Ben, what about defensive systems?" Ben Clark monitored his distributed computer network as it analyzed the approaching enemy ships. "The hull modifications Danny designed are holding perfectly. Their targeting systems are having trouble getting a solid lock on us because our sensor profile doesn't match anything in their databases." "Lisa, how are the engines?" Lisa Campbell watched the rebuilt fusion cores that powered their ship. "Running at 90% efficiency and ready to go to full power when needed. The Korgan ships are bigger, but were faster and more maneuverable." The first Korgan destroyer opened fire with a massive plasma cannon that could have melted through the armor of any standard galactic warship. The beam struck the USS Defiance directly in the center of its hull, where Danny Rodriguez's honeycomb framework absorbed and dispersed the energy across dozens of structural points. Sparks flew from some control panels, but the ship kept flying. "Hull. Damage minimal," Danny reported from the damage control station. "The framework is working exactly like we designed it to." Jake smiled grimly. "Kate, return fire. Show them what human engineering looks like." The USS Defiance's weapons opened fire with a coordinated barrage that no galactic ship could have produced. Kate's railguns fired projectiles moving at nearly the speed of light, punching through Korgan shields like they were made of paper. Her missile systems launched volleys of smart projectiles that used Ben's computer network to coordinate their attacks. The first Korgan destroyer shuddered under the impact of weapons that hit harder than anything they had encountered before. Holes appeared in its armor plating. Explosions bloomed along its hull. Within seconds, the massive warship was venting atmosphere and falling out of formation. Impossible, came Warlord Graktos's voice over the communication channel. No ship that size should have that much firepower. The second Korgan destroyer tried to flank the USS Defiance, using its superior size and speed to get into position for a killing shot. But Ben's computer systems predicted the maneuver, and Jake turned his ship to meet the attack head-on. More plasma beams struck the human ship, and more of the energy was absorbed and dispersed by Danny's innovative hull design. Meanwhile, Kate's weapons continued their devastating barrage, targeting weak points that the Korgan had never bothered to protect because no enemy had ever been able to hit them with such precision. The second destroyer began taking serious damage. Its main engines went offline. Its weapon system started failing. Warning lights flashed across its hull as internal explosions tore through critical systems. The third Korgan ship, seeing what had happened to its companions, tried to retreat. But the USS Defiance was faster and more agile than its bulky opponents. Jake pursued the fleeing destroyer, and Kate's weapons finished what they had started. Within 20 minutes of the battle's beginning, one Korgan destroyer was completely disabled, and the other two were fleeing at maximum speed. The USS Defiance had not even taken significant damage. "Amy, open a channel to the Luminary Research Station," Jake ordered. "This is Captain Morrison. The Korgan ships have been driven off. Do you need assistance with repairs?" The response came, in the melodic voice typical of Luminary. "Captain Morrison, we cannot express our gratitude adequately. You have saved our research and our lives. How did you defeat 3 destroyers with such a small ship?" Jake looked around his bridge at the crew members who had made this victory possible. "We had some very good engineers and a lot of determination. As word of the engagement spread through galactic communication networks, Jake knew that everything was about to change. The humans who had been dismissed as primitives and given garbage to build with had just humiliated one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. The Galactic Council would no longer be laughing at humanity. 3 months had passed since the humans received their pile of alien scrap metal. The construction facility on the edge of Earth's solar system was buzzing with activity that would have amazed any alien observer. But no aliens were watching. They had all assumed the humans would give up by now. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the massive workspace and could hardly believe what his team had accomplished. Where once there had been only broken junk, now the skeleton of a real spaceship was taking shape. It looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels he had seen in galactic databases. This ship was angular and purposeful, built like a fortress that could survive anything the galaxy threw at it. Engineer Lisa Campbell stood on a platform next to the ship's main hull, directing a team of welders who were fitting pieces of alien armor, plating onto a framework made of human steel. Her hair was tied back and her work clothes were stained with grease and metal dust. She had barely slept in weeks, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "The beauty of working with their garbage," Lisa explained to Jake as they watched the work progress, "is that nobody expects it to work at all. So when we make it work better than the original design, it's going to shock everyone." Jake nodded as he studied the hull construction. The alien plating that had been cracked and worthless was now serving as outer armor over a honeycomb framework that Danny Rodriguez had designed. Danny was their best mechanic, and he had found a way to make the broken alien materials stronger than they had ever been when they were new. "Look at this," Danny said, joining them on the platform. He pointed to where human steel beams connected with alien metal plates. "The aliens built their ships like single solid pieces, strong, but when something breaks, the whole section fails. We're building this like a web. If one part gets damaged, the rest of the structure holds everything together." Jake could see what Danny meant. Instead of trying to fix the cracked alien plates, they had built a completely new framework and used the alien materials as additional protection. The result was a hull that was both lighter and stronger than anything in the galactic fleet. "Kate." Sullivan emerged from inside the ship, wiping sweat from her forehead. She was in charge of the weapon systems, and Jake knew she had been facing the biggest challenge of all. The alien weapons were not only old and broken, but they worked on completely different principles than human technology. "How are the weapons? Coming along?" Jake asked. Kate grinned. "Better than I hoped. The alien energy weapons were designed for their power systems and their targeting computers. Since we're using human power and human computers, I had to completely rebuild everything from scratch." She led them to a section of the ship where weapon mounts were being installed. "I kept the alien housings because they look like old, harmless technology, but inside, we've got something completely different. Human railguns that can punch through any armor in the galaxy, and missile systems that use targeting algorithms the aliens have never seen before." Jake was impressed. The weapons looked exactly like the outdated alien systems the Galactic Council had given them. But underneath the familiar exterior, Kate had built something entirely new, using human engineering principles. Ben Clark was working nearby at a bank of computer terminals that hummed with quiet activity. Ben was their systems analyst, and he had been given the task of making the ancient alien computers work with modern human technology. What he had created was something no one had expected. "Ben, show the captain what you've done with the computing." "Systems," Lisa called out. Ben looked up from his screens with a tired but satisfied expression. The alien computers were outdated by their standards, but they were still more advanced than anything we had on Earth. The problem was that they were designed to work alone, not as part of a network. He gestured to the dozens of computer units that were connected by cables and wireless links throughout the ship. "I connected all of them together using human networking protocols. What we have now is a distributed computing system that's virtually impossible to hack or disable." Jake didn't fully understand the technical details, but he could see the pride in Ben's voice. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means that our ship can think faster and react quicker than anything else in space. The alien computers were designed to be centralized and hierarchical. Ours is decentralized and adaptive. If they try to jam our communications or hack our systems, they'll be fighting something that operates on principles they've never encountered." Lisa joined the conversation, pointing to various parts of the ship. "Every system we've built follows the same philosophy. We took their broken technology and rebuilt it using human methods. The fusion cores that were failing now produce more power than they ever did when they were new. The life support systems that were unreliable now have triple redundancy. The navigation computers that were obsolete now have capabilities that surpass anything in their current fleet." Danny added his own observations. "The aliens build things to be perfect from the start. When something breaks, they throw it away and build a new one. Humans build things to be fixable. We assume something will break, so we design it to keep working anyway." Jake walked through more sections of the ship, seeing human ingenuity applied to alien technology everywhere he looked. In the engine room, the broken fusion cores had been completely rebuilt with human safety systems and efficiency improvements. In the crew quarters, alien environmental systems had been modified to work better for human needs. In the cargo bays, alien storage systems had been redesigned to be more flexible and accessible. Kate showed him the missile storage areas where human-designed weapons sat in alien-looking launchers. "The best part is that everything looks like their old technology from the outside. When they scan our ship, they'll see exactly what they expect to see: outdated weapons, ancient computers, obsolete power systems. They'll have no idea what we're really capable of until it's too late." Ben demonstrated the bridge systems, where alien control panels had been rewired to work with human interfaces. "I've programmed the displays to show fake readings when scanned by alien sensors. They'll think our power output is what they'd expect from their old equipment. They'll think our weapons are the same ones they threw away. They'll think our computers are running their obsolete software." Lisa climbed up to the ship's main view screen, which showed a view of the completed vessel from outside. "We've named her the USS Defiance, and she's almost ready for her first test flight." Jake looked at the ship his team had built from garbage and felt a surge of pride. The USS Defiance was ugly by alien standards, with mismatched plating and asymmetrical weapon mounts. But he could see the intelligence in every design choice, the careful thought that had gone into every modification. "How long until she's spaceworthy?" he asked. 2 weeks for final systems checks and crew training," Lisa replied. 3 weeks if we want to be absolutely certain everything works perfectly." Jake nodded. "Make it 2 weeks. I have a feeling the galaxy is about to get a very big surprise." As he walked back through the construction facility, Jake could see dozens of human engineers and technicians putting the finishing touches on their impossible creation. They had taken the aliens' garbage and turned it into something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy, and the best part was that no one expected it. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the huge alien building and felt very small. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Giant alien creatures sat on floating platforms that moved around the room like slow clouds. Jake had never seen anything like this place before. Earth had just joined the Galactic Council only 3 weeks ago. He was here to receive humanity's first official gift from their new alien neighbors. The message had said it was a welcoming present to help humans build their first real spaceship. The aliens looked down at him with what seemed like amusement. Some had too many eyes. Others had skin that looked like metal. A few seemed to be made of pure energy that shifted and moved like living lightning. Jake tried to stand straight and look confident, but inside he felt nervous. Admiral Zixithara was the biggest alien in the room. He looked like a giant insect with 6 arms and mandibles that clicked when he talked. His voice came through a small device that translated his words into English, but it sounded cold and mechanical. "Human Captain Morrison," the alien admiral said, and Jake could hear laughter in the translation. "Your species has been accepted into our great community. We have decided to give you materials to build your first galactic vessel." Jake smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. Earth is grateful for this opportunity." More clicking sounds came from Zixithara, and Jake realized the alien was laughing at him. Other aliens around the room started making their own strange sounds. Some buzzed, some hummed, some made noises like breaking glass, but Jake could tell they were all laughing. "Bring in the gift," Zixithara commanded. Large doors opened at the far end of the room. Floating platforms carried in piles of twisted metal and broken machinery. Jake watched as load after load of junk was dumped onto the crystal floor. Pieces of what looked like old spaceship parts clattered and banged as they hit the ground. Sparks flew from broken electrical components. Strange liquids leaked from cracked containers. Jake stared at the growing pile of garbage. This was not what he had expected. The aliens had made it sound like they were giving humanity valuable materials to build a proper starship. Instead, they were looking at a mountain of scrap metal and broken parts. "This is your gift," Zixithara announced. "Old fusion cores that no longer work properly, hull plating with cracks and holes, weapon systems from ships that were scrapped centuries ago, computer parts that our children use for toy projects." A thin alien that looked like it was made of silver wire spoke up. "We call this a learning experience for primitive species. Perhaps if you study our old garbage, you might understand how real technology works." Another alien, this one covered in thick gray fur, added his own comment. "Do not expect too much from these materials. Most civilized species throw this kind of junk into their suns. But maybe you can make a small cargo ship if you work very hard." Jake felt his face getting hot with anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. Behind him, he heard engineer Lisa Campbell moving closer to look at the pile of parts. Lisa was one of Earth's best engineers, and Jake trusted her judgment more than anyone else's. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "some of this stuff might actually be useful." Zixithara's hearing was better than Jake had realized. The alien admiral started clicking again, which the translator turned into more laughter. "Did the human engineer say useful?" "Child, These parts were outdated when your species was still hitting rocks together to make fire. Lisa stepped forward, not seeming bothered by the insult. May I examine the materials more closely? By all means, Zixthera said. Study our garbage. Learn what real technology looks like, even when it is broken and worthless. Lisa knelt down beside the pile and started picking up different pieces. Jake watched her examine a cracked power core, then a bent piece of hull plating, then what looked like the remains of a targeting computer. Her eyes were bright with interest, not disappointment. The alien admiral continued talking to the other council members, not bothering to keep his voice down. 6 months, he said. I give them 6 months before they realize this task is impossible. Then they will come back here begging for real assistance. 6 months is too generous, the Silver Wire alien replied. These primitives will give up in 3 months when they cannot even understand how the parts fit together. Jake had heard enough. He stood up straighter and looked directly at Admiral Zixthera. Thank you for this gift. Earth accepts these materials and the challenge that comes with them. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. Challenge? Zixthera clicked. Child, this is not a challenge. This is a lesson in humility. We are showing you how far your species has to go before you can consider yourselves civilized. The gray-furred alien added, When you fail to build anything useful from this scrap, perhaps you will understand your proper place in the galaxy. Humans should focus on simple tasks like farming and mining. Leave advanced technology to species that actually understand it. Jake felt the anger building inside him again, but Lisa's voice cut through his thoughts. Captain, she said quietly, give me 6 months and a good team. I think we can surprise them. Admiral Zixthera heard her words and the clicking sound of his laughter filled the entire room. 6 months? Your species will be fortunate if you can build a functioning garbage hauler from that refuse. Perhaps then you will comprehend your position in this galaxy. Other aliens joined in with their own comments. The energy beings pulsed brighter as they laughed. The metal-skinned creatures made sounds like grinding gears. Even the smaller aliens, that Jake hadn't noticed before, were making their own amused noises. Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces staring down at him. Some looked amused, others looked bored. A few seemed almost sorry for him. But none of them looked like they thought humans could succeed with this pile of junk. As the council session ended and the aliens began floating away on their platforms, Jake walked over to where Lisa was still examining the scrap pile. Chief Mechanic Danny Rodriguez had joined her, along with weapons specialist Kate Sullivan and systems analyst Ben Clark. They were Earth's finest engineers and technicians, but even they looked uncertain as they studied the broken alien technology. Well, team, Jake said, picking up a piece of corroded metal that might have once been part of a spaceship engine. It looks like we're about to show them what human determination really means. Lisa looked up at him with a grin. Captain, they just made a big mistake. They think this is junk because it's old and broken, but I'm seeing possibilities they can't even imagine. Jake nodded and looked back at the empty platforms where the aliens had been sitting. Then let's get to work. We have 6 months to build something that will wipe those smug expressions off their faces.